Right,
Didn't we
we
do that the
are,
first time?
things are very shape on the agenda.
All right, well, let's roll it.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe we. There's not gonna be a report from council because he's not here. Again,
Is he coming or like sent his regards or just?
don't know,
Okay.
don't know. There's no public here, so we can do, Chris had a report about vacancies and expiring terms. We can shove that up in front of the police department, then do the police and the police analyst. And meet the new chief, assistant chief, deputy chief, assistant chief,
Deputy chief,
deputy chief.
yes.
So looking real quick at the agenda, can I make a motion to approve the September minutes? They look fine. I didn't think they needed any changes. Just as the first item on our agenda.
Yeah, but let's, say hello to the, deputy chief.
All right.
Most of us, I'm Rick Rogers.
Ghost.
To go, yeah.
You just go around and say.
Sure, I'm Ben Sandberg and I'm, my day job, I'm the director of the History Center.
I'm Nikki Seward. I'm a grad student at UMass.
Tony, Meryl, I've been on the board here for a couple of years. You might remember me from up at Cornell to
Yeah,
doing cybersecurity work. So,
right, yeah.
yeah, good to see you again.
You know me, I'm here as city clerk.
Ariel Jackson, I'm relatively new on the board. Welcome down the hill.
Thank you. You.
Nice
Oh,
meeting you.
yes.
I'll be your guide.
Yeah,
And Richard.
How you doing?
good, how are you?
Good.
Good,
I think I've seen you on a couple of meetings at MOC Oprah and Cornell, maybe.
yes,
Yeah. And honestly, I'm just glad that you're here. Welcome. I've been on the board for lost track how long now. Pretty long time. So, but I'm happy to see you joining and welcome to the meeting.
thank you, yeah. Tony Bellamy, been here since October 2nd in the city and we're 21 years at Cornell Police. The last 3 is chief of police up there and I'd like to, in conversation with Tom, like where direction he was going with city and city police department and so I want to join the teams and give something back to the city, as I've been on the Hill for 21 years and driving through, so yeah. So far, working through my onboarding process and so thank you for having me.
You wanna quickly introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, I think you know everyone. Dave Shapiro, I'm on
Yes,
the.
thank you.
You met the new deputy chief.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the introduction.
Yeah.
Introduction, yeah.
It looks like a lot bigger group on one side.
We've already got a motion to approve September minutes. You got a second, and
Second.
got a second. Take a vote on it. Ready, brother? Okay. And there's no public? Or from council, we're gonna skip the police and do the police with the data analyst.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Because we had gotten something, a couple of emails that in some ways constituted sort of public comment, but not being here. Do we have procedural guidelines as being new to the commission of whether folks can submit written public comment? Do we then take time to read those, or are we expected to like sort of just, oh, okay, yep, that was emailed to us? And I'm specifically thinking about the stuff around motorized.
Bruce
bikes.
Wells, yeah, well, he did send in one since he was here.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I
that's,
could have copied it off and brought him in and read it. But I didn't.
I just don't know what our usual operations are for that kind of stuff.
Traditionally, public comments are kind of done on site,
Okay.
right? And so those type of things would be addressed directly, kind of individually when possible, and they'll just the chair that might need to focus on. Yeah, you want to do that, but most of the time it's not for like during the meeting, live on site, whether they're participating or not. Unless they have some sort of things they might relay by like the clerk's office a little last minute, but usually it's just direct follow up.
Right.
I
Is
think
there
we wanna
anything
be, I think we wanna be mindful too, if people are emailing the board, not necessarily intending it to be for public comment. They may have questions or other things that they wanna engage the board on that doesn't really fit that criteria.
So is there anything new from this new, that you wanted to comment on? I did call him, as I told you guys, and I spoke to him. We had a nice conversation. It's here for a guest, a public comment, or
Sorry?
are you here to make any public comments, or just guests, did you watch, or?
Depends on what time, what we hear.
Well, if you have a public comment, you want to say something to the board, now's the time.
Not at the moment, no, I don't.
Okay.
You are here for the community police board meeting?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's just that this is the designated time we have for public comment, but otherwise you're fine. Yeah.
All righty.
Oh, okay. She's like, no. I don't.
We have a friend who asked us to ask a question, but.
Now's the time.
Yeah.
If you have a plan for when the EBT ends and possible thefts and IFCA from stores and, I guess, the question,
Plan for,
to try to prevent or, kind of, her question was just, do you have a plan for when the EBT ends and possible thefts from stores?
what is EBT? I don't-
The SNAP benefits.
So that might be a question for
Yeah.
the chief and see how. I check it out. I don't know if you want to talk about it now.
Not now. That's. We're not gonna get into EBT benefits ending, SNAP benefits.
I think what she's asking is that as they end, people who still have some on their card, they're gonna be more susceptible to people trying to steal theirs. So I think that they're more correct me if I'm wrong, asking if there's a policy in place with it's like when there's gonna be a festival, there's a heightened possibility for crime. Given the situation, there's a heightened possibility that there could be theft. I think that's what they're asking about.
Okay, well, that question should be passed along to the police department, but we're not gonna answer it now.
Okay.
Because we've got a full agenda for our meetings.
It's kind of a purview thing, like that's not entirely under what we would do,
Okay.
but I appreciate the question.
Yeah.
You wanna leave it?
What's that? No, thanks, I have that.
I'll give you my email.
What's that?
I'll give you my email, you can email me.
This is our police chief.
So she's actually here, so.
Sure.
I think the board chair has to sign that
Yeah,
for school stuff.
yeah.
You gotta stay for the whole meeting though, you gotta.
You're stuck with it.
So while we're doing that, is there any report from common council?
We have been knee deep in the budget for the last couple of months, so we haven't really discussed anything pertaining to this board. I was gonna also just bring to attention the email that we all received from the constituent about the motorized bikes or vehicles, I'm not sure what to call them. But I also don't know if that's under the purview of this board, but that gentleman, he has requested this board several times here, his concerns about motorized vehicles on the common specifically, but I think, not having any kind of city policy about when or where they're able to be used is the broader sense of his question, but again, that's just, I don't think it's the purview of this board, but it is something that we might want to, I don't think block was necessary the purview of this board, but I thought it was something that for me was talked about at city council, so I thought I should bring it to stakeholders that are interested in community safety.
Matt, quick question, are they legal in New York State yet? E-bikes?
So they are,
Scooters?
they are legal and this is stuff that, he's had concern with the bikes in general.
That's about that, so the last time I remember,
And-
years ago, it wasn't legal, so that would have been a really good way to.
So- Yeah, anything that right now that is electric is really not considered. It doesn't fall underneath like a moped or a motorcycle. There are some other guidelines within the VTL for speeds and weight. There's a whole section within New York State, the DMV that spells that out, but most of them, but they're basically considered to be a bicycle, which
Okay.
on the commons is not allowed.
Yeah, one of his earlier emails, which I think might have predated when some of you folks joined us, was, I think it was regarding a policy that was passed by Cortland, the city of Cortland, that puts restrictions on where you can use e-bikes. So I think he was hoping that we would have a similar kind of discussion, but again, I don't know if that's for here, if that's a planning department discussion or.
Has common council had that discussion?
No, not at all, yeah.
I look forward to you guys figuring that out.
I think we'll kick that to the planning board. I think
It's
that's.
really,
that makes-
really apropos for common council, and
We're kicking it all.
it's an important thing for business owners on the commons. And Mr. Kurzweil, you know, said feels completely disrespected by mayor and common council, and I talked to him on the phone after he came to our meeting. And I completely agree with him. That the directions for what can and cannot be on the common should be clear. But it's not our purview to write legislation. That's yours and, well, common councils, and
Shall we have a barbecue tomorrow?
I think so. Your house?
That's in Chinese, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great now, like it translates, just hops up and tells you what they're saying. I have no idea who this is, but.
But on the flip side of that, right, like this, I think would fall if it was a specific complaint about and how an officer handled biking on the commons or something like that. I had the opportunity with Officer Babcock to do a beat walk that covered the commons. And multiple times on that beat walk, he flagged down and, you know, had conversations with folks who were biking on the commons and, you know, reminded them of the ordinances. But also there are police officers on the commons the whole time. And there have been other like the last public comment was, you know, shouldn't the city administrators and city staff have an obligation to enforce these policies? I don't know if it ever got communicated, but that feels like a no, right? That actually, I don't think is the job of city staff to be enforcing the laws, you know, out on the commons or that kind of stuff. I think, so like, you know, when police officers are present, I have seen them enforcing the no bikes rule, which covers pedal bikes and e-bikes regardless of motorized classifications. And so like, I definitely feel in terms of this board, a little stuck of like, you know, what is that action for us as a group?
Also, go ahead.
other than none. I mean, I don't.
Or, you know, communicating through our rep to common council, right, that there are, you know. That it feels like there is a lack of this issue being addressed at some times, which feels important, right, because. It is being addressed at other times, and that is there a policy solution or some other kind of solution? So.
Well, there's always, at least with the board, there's always been this kind of broad space we want to take up when it comes to general safety. So like block is a natural space because it does have to do a lot of functioning policy. In this particular situation, in your specific example, the focus would primarily be on the person's interaction with the officer, right? But outside of that, well, to answer your question even more specifically is as to where things come to play, usually hinges on what is the person asking, right? And in this particular case, they're looking for legislation, right? They're looking for some sort of policy. And so, sure, we might have regular thoughts or even possible recommendations, but ultimately it falls between the council and potentially the planning department as to what's possible to actually get some sort of feasible response. Ultimately, it would just be a rigmarole, right, for us, and he seems as someone that's determined to get some sort of action properly taken. So the question ultimately, in my view, becomes, what's the stalemate in terms of council? Where are they? Why or why not have they not taken it up? Or if they have a decision, what is that decision, so this person can kind of be aware, but ultimately, we're kind of limited to what the person's asking. And depending on the broader scope of the discussion, and so, yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that framing of it. Thank you.
Welcome to the first meeting.
Fine, I would tell you, I was with the chief several times where he did speak to people on bicycles on the commons. And everyone complied, so I was with him during those times.
I think you're gonna take it over council?
Yeah, I'm sorry, just like we come here and I give you guys my liaison report from council. We repeat the same cycle and I repeat to the council the things that we discuss here. So we did not do that this past week because we've only been talking about the budget, but hopefully by the, what are we month are we in? Hopefully by the November meeting, there will be an opportunity for me to report on liaison activities.
You know, if you reached out to this guy personally, he's a real nice guy, and he's got some legitimate points. And he's been after this for a long time. This is not something that he just came up with. So, I think he's worth spending some time with like a common council member, and just do great service that you could do for the city. And for him, you know, he's really feeling disrespected. I spoke to him for a long time on the phone. I agree with him. But there's nothing I can do about it. Or our board can do about it, so.
It might be worth also talking to the new director for the planning department. He also has a history with bikes as well, so. Like,
He just retired.
retired?
Tom
moved to the county.
Yeah, he's at the
Oh,
county.
okay.
Sorry.
Very sad.
Alright. Yeah, either way, I just think.
Like that.
It's outdated.
Both your points are well taken. I'll reach out to
I'm glad you
constituents and
understand
staff
exactly
members.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was retired, I thought he was.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I knew it started with R, it was resignation or retired. I
Oh,
didn't know where to.
Alright, thought you said that. Okay. Sorry to bring it up.
Make you wonder what meeting you missed if you didn't know we had a new planning director.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So is council still considering reducing the police budget by 4 positions?
I think, well, there's two different levels of consideration. I think there was the first budget that was presented, and then I think what everyone already knows is that there was a new budget gap that needed to be resolved. I think the first budget that was presented began thinking about implementing what's called a vacancy rate, which is like the understanding that all your positions on average will turn over, and just using a percentage to think about what that turnover rate would look like. So the first budget had about a 5% turnover rate, which means about every position is gonna be vacant for 2 weeks. I'm just using simple math. I think in addition to that, there has been conversation about reducing the budget in the 3 largest departments. I mean, the police department, I think, was under some pressure to keep their budget small, DPW and the fire department. I think all departments are under that type of pressure. Chief, you could maybe speak a little more specifically about your position if you want to.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I can follow up later.
Well, I looked that up for a reason. It's because this board has been involved with budgets and police department before. And the history of what happens with common council when they cut positions from the department, they never come back, even though those positions in fact might not be filled. So if there are 4 positions out there that are not gonna be filled because we can't hire, the city can't hire enough, or the department can't hire enough. That's one thing. The city will never spend that money because, but they have to budget for it just in case. But last time positions were cut by common council, they never came back in the public's mind. So what, at one point, was 81 positions funded, and that's quote funded, and there weren't necessarily 81 officers, is now down to, I believe, 67. in people's mind. If we cut 4, it'll be 63, and we'll never get higher than 63. And I think that's important that we keep that in mind, that there's a clarity to that.
I think what, if I could talk a little more further, Chief, I think one of the things that just maybe further complicated, how much, staff is needed is that there's clearly a lot of overtime in the police department, and a lot of this council members were wanting to make sure that doesn't lead to like burnout and stuff like that. And some of them felt like the response that was needed was further investment in, and this is both related to and unrelated to overtime. But thinking about our unarmed response team and what we're looking to develop, both in conjunction with the police department and separate from the police department. And I think those are evolving discussions. So I think certainly for some council members, there's a desire to fund those positions. And if that means reducing the police force, then that's okay. I think there are other people that sit, kind of in the middle of those things. And some people look at them completely separately.
It's not hard to notice that the amount that could be saved by a cut in the budget for the police department pretty much equal to the amount that unarmed responders are going to require from the budget. It's almost as if there's a trade-off. Although when I listen to common council talk about this, they don't talk about it in that term. So I'm bringing this up because this is a public meeting, and really what's happening is common council is considering permanently cutting the police force from a maximum of 67 to a maximum of 63. That's a permanent cut. It'll never come back again.
I think we can confidently say that this budget season is gone. Like, there's not, I don't think there's anything that we can say or contribute that's gonna impact what's gonna be
In this
decided in the
budget
next
season.
week, because they are in absolute crisis mode, so. Maybe we can formulate something for next year and put it in way ahead,
Oh, we
but
should
right
formulate
now,
something.
it's not gonna make a dang darn bit of difference.
So I guess, I mean, I have a question on where that's coming from, because I'm aware of the method that they're looking at balancing the budget, and that there are vacancies across the city, so it's not eliminating a position, it's budgeting based on knowing that positions are going to be vacant for a certain amount of time. And the position like that we're in right now, there were a couple of things that we were coming into the budget looking for in increasing the number of positions, in increasing the roster, which we've had a good amount of support from the council on that. We also were coming to the council after 2 years, myself of, working with the department on Reimagine, and having a violence interrupter that we worked with a number of members of the city council to put in place, where, we have somebody that has been working in the community for over 5 years. But now we've connected him and funded him through a grant with Second Wind Cottages, so he's not an employee of the city, which some people tend to confuse, like, people have a distrust for the government. Like, it doesn't matter if you put them with the police or you put them with another city agency, it's still the government. And so like this program with the violence interrupter is actually through an independent outreach group. Deb Wilkie, that, she's been around for many, many years. People know and trust her in the community. So we came forward with that program and expanded the community alternative response and engagement, the care team, expanding that, which we're still working on what that looks like. Whether there's a commitment from the county to pay for half of the second half or not, that was a discussion.
Cause it's a county program, correct?
It is a county program because the care team member is a clinician, which means that they're licensed.
Yeah, it's been very successful, the care
yeah.
team with the county, very successful.
Yes. And our care team member, the short amount of time that she's been active, really quickly, we recognize that she's familiar with people that we interact with all the time. The difference is when she interacts, she can follow up with the hospital, with private clinicians, with DSS, with Children and Family Services. So like, she can connect people to services that a city employee can't. So it's not just the time that she's with the officer on the street, it's the time that behind the scenes that she's making those connections. And we have a number of people that do not have the contact they had before with the police because of her work. So we were trying to expand that. We've been the whole time, you know, I think the police department has been, although it hasn't always been publicly covered, has been very supportive of Reimagine and our work with the Criminal Justice Center, with Mona Lisa. And where we're at now, this budget crisis kind of threw everything into a little bit of a wrinkle where there's still a call for some people for alternative. But there's also a lot of people within the community that do see what's happening is they're not gonna come to a council meeting and voice that. I think we got a little bit of a taste of the community's feelings when Travis Brooks spoke at the legislative meeting and kind of expressing like that somebody got on and actually said, we don't have gun violence, and you know, and which we know, like over the last 4 or 5 years, like we had a lot of gun violence, and the partnerships that have been made within the community have worked to reduce that. Some people are incarcerated, but these are also people that were involved in all of that gun violence. So, you know, there's that trade-off. Where we're at now is that continued relationship with parole and probation and the URO, the Ultimate Reentry Authority. So when people are coming back out of incarceration, they're connected to services to support their rehabilitation, to get people back connected, so they're not reoffending, so they're not, I mean, recidivism has been studied for many, many years. It's very real. If somebody's coming out of the system without support, they're very prone to reoffending. But so there's a lot of different components and things at play, and like where we're getting to, and with this current budget, and really, I think some people may think that I've been stubborn, but I've also, as committed as we are, we're committed to doing things that have success, that have, you know, documented success. So this is the first the positions aren't cut. It's just part of that budget and planning to balance the budget. But if we have people to fill those positions, I've been told that we will fill those positions. This is not the best way to balance a budget. I think it's been done by the county. But they're not caught. They're being used to make the numbers work right now, because we don't have those positions to fill. We don't have the bodies to put in them and fill. But ultimately, going forward, we're not just looking to fill those positions. We're looking to continue to expand on the programs that we see success in.
And years past, same argument has come up, and the positions are funded, but they're only funded on paper, because it's funded with the knowledge that the police department is not going to be able to fill the positions.
I mean, this happens with everything. The DPW had a 7-man team in the budget right before the pandemic. Like, it was in there, like restricted contingency, the whole deal, and they were just waiting to be filled and people to apply. Pandemic hit, it was gone, still hasn't come back. This stuff happens all the time. So even if they take it, it can come back. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, they
No, it
always
doesn't.
play this game with when we hire people to save some money here and there.
What makes sense is what's in people's mind is the maximum amount of officers that the department would be allowed to hire. That's been reduced from 81 under Mayor Myrick's. 9 people were taken off. Never in the discussions, any discussions to common council will those 9 people ever mentioned again. They're gone, and they're gone forever. And my worry is that those 4 positions that are not going to be budgeted are in fact a permanent cut in the maximum for the department.
I'm just noting that it happens in every single department in the city. Ask Alan.
I think
I'll tell you.
Well, we're not here for a budget discussion. I'm just bringing it up because that's public.
I appreciate
meeting,
it.
And I want people to know
Mhm.
that what was happening before the $2 million shortfall was essentially a cut of 4 officers, armed officers.
Mhm.
And possibly a replacement of those armed officers with 4, 2, or some amount of a nascent department of unarmed responders. That was what was really going to happen.
I think part of the issue is there's just been. There's sometimes there are folks when you're working internally what you might be familiar with just by operating in certain means. And then what happens and by what people are able or have access to see and what has happened historically, right? So to say that this always happens, there have been different mayoral administrations who've handled things differently, and I've seen it done differently. So, and what tends to happen is that, as Rick is mentioning, is that usually when a change happens, there's some sort of hope that it can be, remedied in some sense. And often just because of circumstances that may happen, it typically isn't, whether intentional or not. Now, that isn't to say that this administration doesn't have some sort of hope of finding a way to, make things happen and as far as what's possible. But that's more of like an internal awareness, right? And I think what would be more helpful, like what you just talked about, Chief, is really, to me, a more comprehensive conversation than what's been taking place publicly in terms of being able to kind of explain this is where this is going. These are some of the things that we're looking to connect, and which also kind of leads me to, really get an understanding of what Dominique, I forgot his name, his title,
Deputy City Manager.
him,
Dominic,
yeah, him. But what his plan, or ultimately what the plan is to be able to comprehensively connect all these pieces, because that's always what's actually been constant throughout these years with all these different mayors is how do you actually connect all the different pieces and stop having these particular silos? And it sounds like we're kind of working there, but it's always like you got one person that's, a one-man band, and then they gotta try to figure it out, and then we're gonna ask them, and then it's always this kind of stalemate, and it's never really, it would be great to kind of have like, this is our chartered plan, these are the folks that we're growing, kind of having these more regular updates on how these different staffs are growing, how these different services are connecting, including the reentry space and how they're benefiting, right? Having these, you do a pretty good job of like giving us updates on what CARE is doing and things like that, but it would be good to kind of have it more approached even in the city council meetings, like what are we, having in a broader space, so more folks can understand this bigger picture that y'all are trying to shape, so that you don't often have to explain yourself so much.
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate that, and there's been a lot of work around Reimagine long before I got here, and certainly we've been very committed to it and to alternative responders and deflecting people from the criminal justice system. But we've also seen and bring a lot of knowledge and experience, to the table in working with people in crisis, and so that's been a big thing that we've been at times questioning how much we've been heard, but in trying to communicate to people like what we've seen and done and what the state is rolling out in terms of their funding and different programs. Because there's a number of people that come to mind. We have this conversation that have been very, very successful with CARE. They've been successful with the LEAD program. There's also people that have had a lot of services, and some have less contact, but still have contact. Some maybe have less violent contact. And we have somebody very recent that's back in the criminal justice system, and he has had more people try to support him, and it just doesn't work for him. Those are troubling because of how do you reach that one person? But there's so many other people that have been successful with this model, and we almost have started, a couple people I've talked to is like, we need to reimagine, because we've met the goals that were laid out in Reimagine. Like, we've done these things, like, how do we come back to the table now? How can we do it better?
Right.
And that's important for everybody, not just, academia, but people with that lived experience to be like, hey, this worked or this didn't work, or.
I just want to go on record that you just signed on for 2 more years in meetings, if we're reimagining.
Let's do it. I mean, that's essentially what our job is.
Dave, did you hear that?
You have to
2 more
be-
years of reimagining.
Yeah, but I thought you brought up a good point though, because, you talk about all the different ways that we've provided different responses in addition to the police department. There's, like you mentioned, there's the violence interrupter lead, CARE, CJC, and now there's potential for this program called Roots. we might be growing the violence interrupted program. Independently, and they're all silos, they might achieve good outcomes, but are they achieving good outcomes at their peak efficiency, their peak effectiveness? Or even if they are achieving good outcomes, if they were done in a more, if they were thought about in one cohesive, kind of collaborative way, can they achieve better outcomes and be more efficient and be more effective in the delivery of services? And I think it's great when we think about these ideas, and sometimes thinking of a unique idea in its silo is what's needed. But eventually you need to figure out how to like integrate them into the greater picture. And I think that's what's gonna be an important next step in whatever new services or new responding teams that we develop. They need to, in my opinion, just be thought about in one comprehensive way so that they're all engaged with each other and pursuing kind of the same or like-minded objective.
We wanna go on to the report from police department, kind of went off on tangents. Good tangents, but tangents.
Yeah, do you wanna go ahead and
Yeah. I've heard it.
maybe it's a good time to talk about the stats and then, you know, what has been accomplished and what still needs to be accomplished. I think that's what you look at.
Okay, yes, so I brought by. So this is just,
Oh, yeah, well, seriously.
okay,
She said 5, so yeah.
that's fine.
Is this just a printout of the dashboard? Is that what it is? Is this just a?
It's an updated dashboard that I'm working on, so it's adding some different types of data and just different ways to look at things.
This is because we don't have a screen to put it up on, that's the.
Yeah.
This is the reason for the budget,
She got one.
these color copies.
Yeah.
There's a couple more that are double-sided if anybody else wants.
Well, still, one second.
Double-sided. So yeah, I've been working on this for a little while. Today we had our meeting for the gun involved violence elimination initiative. So the last two slides. Which-
Just interrupt.
Hmm?
So just for the folks that are watching.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cheyenne Smith.
I was gonna wait for Tom to get my. You know, who you are, what you're doing.
I'm Cheyenne Smith. I'm the crime analyst at IPD. I've been at IPD for 17 years and working mostly in investigations as administrative support. And in the last year, I've moved over to start building out our crime analyst position. So there's been a lot of learning involved and a lot of technical difficulties and lots of things. So today we had our give meeting, so I put out the last two slides, which is this one, which is looking just at the violent crimes, and this is for the full year, is through the end of September. So last week I had the opportunity to go to the give meeting in Binghamton, and they do a full meeting with reports on all the part 1 crimes, which there are 8 part 1 crimes. The 4 violent ones are murder, rape, robbery and assault, and then the property crimes are arson, burglary, larceny, and motor vehicle theft. So our main problem in Ithaca always tends to be the larcenies. Those are the highest numbers. For this report, I was looking at just the violent crimes, which have seen a significant decline over the last 4 years. And that's pretty much how it's going throughout the state. And most of the localities are seeing declines. And then I was also asked, because the Asteria building has become a micro hotspot for our responses, I was asked to take a look at the last 30 days of how many calls we've gotten at just Asteria. So that's this one with a little Asteria building in the middle. Just in the last 30 days, so we had 88 responses there. And then we've got listed what types of responses, most of them have been assist. So that would be anything from if we were assisting another agency, if they were going to the building and we were assisting them, or what else? What is this? We assist people, so sometimes we label that as assist if they need assistance, and there's not really something else to put it as.
Yeah, that kind of becomes a bit of a catch-all.
Yeah. And then the disputes and welfare checks are the highest in there. And then the previous 30 days, so we went up a little bit. So it always, a lot of times it depends on the weather, on student population and what's going on just over that 30 days. And then I broke it down in the center. We have the shifts, which is A, B, and C. So A is overnight, B is morning 7 AM to 3 PM, and C is the evening. So as expected, the day is usually the slowest for responses. And then at night, the responses amp up.
It's like with this, she can take and drill down further and like what types of calls by hours and there's so much more information you can pull out of this, but to do a presentation like this, like it wouldn't make any sense. So you can see some of the other slides she has printed up. It's almost overwhelming the amount of information that's there. The thing to highlight too with assists and like it becomes a catch-all, but then it's like how far down you drill in. Over the last couple of years, they've been working, Dewar has been working on narrowing down the number of selections, because you could have hundreds of like different things to where now they start overlapping with each other, so they try to narrow the categories down. To provide like the best use of that information, but it doesn't mean that like she can't go down and drill in specifically to what those assists were, and which in this sense, the fact that it is the highest, we'd want to take a deeper dive look and see how we could break that down.
But at the same time, if we do break it down too much, then it's hard to find the data, because like for traffic incidents, we have traffic incidents, traffic accidents, traffic tickets. And so we have to search all of these different codings to be able to find the full picture of what's going on for that specific type of call.
That's a question. When it comes to assist, is it fair to assume that these are not criminal acts, these are just general assists that are, or are they or is there some form of?
Yeah, no, I mean, really with this information, it's not, an assist could be somebody locked out of an apartment, but they're really having a domestic. It just like.
Should be changed in that instance.
Right, and some of now though, having an analyst and being able to drill down further, these are things that we can start to figure out, like, for instance, if you look at like where the highest call volume is. The police department still ranks pretty high, but that's something that we need to make sure that people are reclassifying the location of a call to where it's actually occurred, not to where it was reported. So there's things that we're learning as Shai starts to drill down. Also, I guess an important thing to mention now is that like we only make arrests, I think it was 4% or very low of our calls. But it doesn't mean that they're not all arrestable offenses. It means that, law enforcement has discretion. Sometimes instances are best resolved without an On the commons, we do more violations than we did a year ago, but we still do a lot of, what do you call it there, just advisements. And corrective action, larcenies, a business might report a larceny, but then not want the arrest made, they just want the person to return property, so there's. Just because there's not an arrest, it doesn't make it a non-law enforcement call, cause it could very easily escalate without the correct response.
Can you go in here? People ask me sometimes, they say, you're on the police board, what the hell's going on in town? And I go, well, you know, you look at the statistics and I don't know what to say. I honestly, I look at these and I get lost in the details. And so it makes me, doesn't provide me with information I try, and or you take Mr. Kurtzwell and the bikes or scooters or whatever on the commons. I'd like to be able to grab up a statistical sheet and say, well, actually, no, the police are in fact taking care of this. They can't get everybody, but they've done it 17 times. Is that kind of information available in here, or I don't know how, and I don't know how to pull it out.
It's,
So the thing about the new, dashboard. So this screen, when someone is interacting with it, there'll be, different filters where, so you can do a date range or select a date. You'll be able to select what beat you want to look at, like the police beat, the different areas. Anything that you click on here, so any of, in this sheet here. If you click on any of these call types, then it will limit everything else here to just what you've selected. So then you can look at how many arrests were made based on a traffic offense call, and how many, which days of the week were the busiest for the traffic incidents, which times of day. So both of these, color graphs, refer to the days of, the one on top, the blue one, refers to the day of week. And that's for all days of week for the year, because I don't have any specific time selected. So that's for the entire year, so all of the Sundays and all of the Mondays. So the busiest times are gonna be Fridays. Yeah, Friday from 3 to 7 is gonna be the busiest time. And if you wanna look at a specific call type, and it wouldn't necessarily just be the top 10, we'll have all the call types, but because I was printing it, I didn't wanna have a scroll bar since there is no scroll bar. So you can narrow it down, and if you just wanna look at what arrests were made, you can click over here on the arrests, and then it'll show the different call types of arrests.
Clarifying question that maybe goes to your point. These are specifically responses to calls. So if a police officer is walking a beat and stops a bicyclist and says, hey, no biking on the commons, can you please dismount? That isn't gonna show up in here.
they call and generate a call for service, and basically dispatch will pull a ticket, and so that will become a call.
It will,
If
okay.
you're walking and you say to somebody, hey man, no bikes, that's what he's talking about, right?
A police officer will come back to the dispatch
Get on
and
radio and
say,
say, yep,
I did blah, 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 blah at this time, and then that gets locked, okay?
That may or may not, and Chief may not get entered in.
Yeah.
We take a moment to provide an educational opportunity to someone. We're not gonna stop. We may say, hey, you need to dismount in this area. And then are we gonna chase them down to get their name?
Right, yeah, right.
And do an interaction that may make you feel uncomfortable. I only need your name, because if we do that, now, if the officer did get on the radio and say, I just gave someone a warning, you can get back to supervisors and say, well, did you get their name? Did you get their demographics?
Yeah.
And everything, so sometimes, in my opinion, sometimes that is not gonna be captured when you have an educational moment,
yeah,
right?
it has to get captured one way or another.
Right.
And if it's not, for the same reason we have businesses that don't call and report, and then we'll get an email from somebody saying, hey, what's going on with this? Did they call? And did they report it?
So then
That's-
is something discoverable, like how many bikes were stopped? I guess that would really surprise me, and I'd commend you all for your data capturing and recording if that.
If they're
was something in here.
Yeah, I mean, if they're off with a person, like, that should be captured.
Mhm.
Should be.
What does off mean? You use
Like
that.
they stop and they're
For my
talking to
clarification.
some, and they're talking to
Yeah.
somebody, a field interview.
The field interview.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I figured, is you like pulled them off, yeah, and have them.
So to answer one of your last questions is this year, like calls for service, total calls for service are trending up from where they were last year and where they were the year before.
Mhm.
Part one crimes and what we really look at to kind of, overall community safety are going down. So there's a number of things that you can attribute to that, and, one of them, one that's commonly accepted is when there's increased trust in the police department, people are more likely to call and report, incidents. So like it might, at first glance, like you're getting more calls for service, things are getting worse. Well, no, you're getting more calls for service because people feel
Things
more
are getting
comfortable.
Better.
Yes.
That's a little counterintuitive, but I understand what you're saying.
Are there really 1,300 calls for parking problems? What is a parking problem then?
That could be anything.
I'm throwing a
Yeah.
festival and I gotta get people towed because they're parking in front
Really?
of no parking signs.
Yeah.
Can we just take that category of call out?
Well, so
As we're looking for the general calls,
That is-
Parked in front of your driveway, they have to call and.
man, that does skew the call number though, lordy.
An officer.
What
Yeah.
No, I know, I'm just saying, like, that's,
Officers.
yeah, no.
It's a lot of time, right? I've had to have your officers help with towing folks for a variety of public events, and
And that's shared
it
with,
takes it 2.5 hours out of their
It
day.
was just funny, I was like, what is
yeah,
that?
that's shared with parking, like during the week, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, 9 to 5, like you have parking, or CSOs, community service officers that do that.
Can I drill down on a specific crime so I can get a better idea of how this all works? So the page that we were first directed to with the pretty bar graph, right?
Mhm.
And then I'm looking at the one with another bar graph and lots of pretty circles around the map, right? So the yearly comparison on that page, this one. Says that, 2022, 23, 24, 25. If you go down to the rate line, it says 12, 6, 7, and 1.
Mhm.
But then if you go to the bar graph, it says from 22 to 25, 10, 4, 4, and 1. This is the original one, and then this is the other.
Okay, yeah.
So we're looking at this one.
That one and the first one with that has 28 in the top left. So yeah, that's the second one I looked at, and then, yeah.
You know what you're talking about? I see.
I do, yeah, I would have
I
to,
got
to look at how, I built those at different times, so I might have looked at a different. Pulled the data in a different way. So I'd have to look at what I did
I
there.
was just curious, I mean, I'm shocked, honestly, just looking at this the bar graphs you first directed us to. That there's. What you had is the last 2 years, there was only 4 rapes. Is that like, when you're calculating these, is it like a case was actually created and there were charges? Or is this just, you went to a call and that was what it was tagged as?
That's what the call was tagged as, it doesn't necessarily mean that there were charges.
Okay, so there's really only one so far to date in this year, rape in the city of Ithaca?
So the other thing that recently happened and DC Bellamy can help with this is there's a new program at Cornell for victims. So maybe calls that were previously reported aren't reported now because they're going through a victim services on campus.
Well, that's Cornell though. What about us?
It could-
I'm just shocked that that number is so low. Is it like a matter of like how we classify? That's what I was trying to understand is like, is this like we filed charges and it's a case? Is it just a call? Is it, people aren't reporting for some reason? Are they reporting to the county instead of you guys, even if it happens in the city? Like what? are
They
we
could
looking
report
at?
to the county, it would still be sent to the city.
Okay,
So that's the calls that after an officer responds and makes a determination what the call is, that's how it's been entered in the system.
okay. So all of this is just call data. It's not actual
Correct.
cases, solve rate, none of it.
Correct.
Where's that stuff? Cause I like numbers.
That was my next question as far as the tracking of investigations.
Yeah,
How fast, what the number of investigations, how fast are we solving them? So that'd be one thing I'd like to ask about in
Like case closure rates.
case closure rates, but
Right.
also the kind of cases that we're looking at, right?
Yep.
And even with that. On a separate note, to some degree, when you're looking at a situation like this just on calls. Between calls and investigations, and kind of want to bring it back to where some of the things started with when it comes to staffing. Are we in a position, based off of looking at things, where we're able to address the calls, the cases and investigations, in an adequate way? And from your perspective?
But we're still working, from I would say a place of disadvantage. I mean, when you're looking at staffing on any given day, you know, typically. Minimum is 6 officers, but at times, you know, we might go out with 4 or 5.
This happened last week too.
very romantic.
So last week we couldn't figure out how to turn it on.
The timer.
Oh,
See if I can get them.
oh, that's it, meeting's over.
It was great. It ended our meeting.
Seeing
last week.
everybody.
Like, all right, I guess we got.
Let me ask you this.
They were flashlights.
We're taking a break. I just want to kind of poll people. We've got, it's about 5:30. We've got 2 investigations that we really do need to cover, and a third one that's in process, which I don't think we need to go over in executive session. That probably is a half an hour to do those things. We want to stay past 6 o'clock.
I think I think
Or do
this
we
is,
wanna
we wanted to talk about it.
truncate this conversation? I mean, I'd love to go on with this conversation
You want to go downstairs?
forever. I mean, I could spend the whole day, you know, just asking questions and digging into this, but.
I can stay too.
Well, if we have her time,
Oh.
I think that we should honor her being here.
I think, the other thing too is important, like to Rich's point is, I mean, we do have to get to the cases. I mean, this is a breakdown of where the crime analyst is going right now. There's a lot more work to be done. There are, you know, a lot of other things within the operations of, yes, like how long do cases take to work, which is very subjective to the type of case that it is. You know, recently this year, we had a homicide that, you know, we had an arrest within a week, and we still had a couple more weeks of work to finalize that case. Different cases take. Loud noise complaint driving by. Maybe somebody will call, maybe they won't. We don't know. But this is like a
Yeah, what
guy,
Richard was asking, I think, sorry to interrupt, what Richard was asking was important, is like digging down deeper is like arrest cases, solve rate, that's interesting.
Right.
Kind of when we talk about these budget things, I just want, like, from a direct, probably the most direct as possible. What would be the number that you would need to actually address all these different things? I understand that there's a limit. I understand that there's a city budget. I understand that there are all these different constraints. But sometimes I don't think that people that are making these decisions have enough information to actually understand that there needs to be a particular target rate that we need to aim for.
Mhm.
And so if there was a target rate, I almost have to look at it from a business standpoint. What would you need operational wise so that we can yield profit? As opposed to operate in, let me not even go that far. Let's just stick to that point.
Yeah, I mean, well, that goes back to what are the expectations from the community within their police department? Because there is no profit, but it's what degree of public safety or comfort does the community have? Because we could do, and we have been doing a bare minimum. Our overtime numbers that came up earlier. Our overtime has actually gone down, but the budget's increased, and the reason that's happening is because there's contractual increases, so when people are paid more, overtime costs more. So that's kind of hard to look at that from that angle, but in general, like, we have the request for the commons, we have different building, all the housing that is added into the city. Cause there's a lot of places that have opened, that's additional residents.
Burden.
Like, there's a per capita police number that, you know, I've been talking to the mayor about. And something like Utica might be like one officer for every 350 residents, where we're closer to 1 per 800. And we don't think that we need to be at 1 per 350, but we're ways away from that number. And when you think of like the amount of festivals and events and the population that comes to the city for those that don't live here, they're not residents. So, yeah, I mean, everything from traffic enforcement and the commons and the schools and you know, we're trending upwards of, there's a reason why we were at 80+ officers years ago, and cutting those positions didn't cut the responsibilities. It just spread those responsibilities out more amongst the officers that were still here. So I see what you're saying, and we're a little ways away from coming up with a real number. And we're also a long ways away from the funding for that number to support that department. But that goes back to working together with the different services we do have and coordinating the different, all of the different unarmed or alternative responders that do exist within the city. We have programs in the city that are privately funded that, you know, do very, very good work, but it's not done in conjunction with other groups. It's, you know, they do this, and I think they were saying that, like, you know, one group like does this and the other group does this also, but they don't work with each other and share the resources and communicate as well as they should.
So
I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt for a second. Yeah, my apologies, as part of the new splitting up of the rooms, the light sensor is apparently on the other side, and that's a key for, that HR has that no one else has on our side. So unfortunately, I can't get it reset for you right now. You have an HR key?
As a master.
Yeah, I have that one as well. It's
Deb
not
is in the building, right? I'm assuming the city manager would have a key.
not HR.
Do you have a lamp?
That makes sense. Do you have a lamp?
We don't.
These outlets work?
I should have brought my lamp from.
We can do this, we can do things. There we go. If we all do these.
Let me see if I can find a lamp or two.
So I'm confused. I'm so confused. So if this is violent crime, and maybe you mentioned this earlier, Cheyenne, I'm sorry. So if this is the amount of calls, 19,067, that's a lot of calls.
Mhm.
And the violent crime is that low. The rest of the calls are assist, you said, or?
Well, so one of the things that she broke down here is one of our other highest level calls is larcenies. Which right now are 708 larcenies.
So these aren't violent larceny, theft, like stuff like that. This is like quality of life we're looking at, right? Somebody took a package off my front porch, somebody,
There's shoplifting, there's theft from a building, there's theft from a motor vehicle, there's theft of motor vehicle parts. So many thefts are the vehicles, some of the thefts are weapons or guns.
this is like
Shoplifting,
many calls in relation to so little bars.
Don't know. Okay.
And I'm wondering if people are calling you because they trust you, but they're just calling you because they like you at this point.
I mean,
no, I think we're a little ways away from, that.
It's because as a community, we rely on our police department to do lots of things that aren't good.
There was I don't know if it
Wait, you just- that's
called it's called the call log. And you can look in at any particular date and you can look down in all the calls, just in order of
They used to
time.
publish those and I don't
Yeah.
think they do anymore.
And I remember looking at that and being astounded by how many calls came in for what have you, it would be part.
There's our
it could
unarmed
be a-
responders, Richard.
You
Let's
kinda-
send all of those people.
Thank you for saying that, actually, because now you just tied the knots together for me, or a bow together for me. We have
Uh-oh.
19,000 calls, but only 800 crimes. Am I reading that correctly?
But
No, those
this
are
is,
Part one.
Right.
Crimes. So then there are tons of other crimes that are not. Part one is classified by New York State as there's 8 specific crimes. So then anything else outside of that, they could still be crimes. They're just not in that set of 8.
the
Can you
other,
give an example of like.
Like
what a
noise
low-hanging-
complaints where people get arrested for noise.
But shouldn't the, I mean, so I don't mean to cut you off, but this is an excellent point for what we should be talking about on identifying the need. Or what the need is for alternate responses. If there are 800 class A crimes and those are the worst crimes, and other ones that are you know,
So,
a noise complaint. is
I'm
that-
gonna,
is that-
I'm gonna,
Dave, are we
I'm gonna,
creating something? Is
I'm
that-
I
gonna,
don't know.
I'm gonna interject for a moment here
Please,
because
yeah.
I think, and a number of people in this room have gone on ride-alongs and have seen how calls are handled, and many of these calls that come in could potentially become crimes. But
Of course.
because of the response that they get, aren't. And so like, a lot of the people that we interact with that do the theft down at, say, Walmart's or Wegmans or Lowe's or Home Depot, like, have the potential to become violent if the store interacts with them. But because it's a law enforcement, they don't. The officer that had gotten run over in the county just out south of us. Again, somebody was willing to run a person over in the street. So because like, and that was a law enforcement officer that was run over, they would have that same potential to run over somebody who's not armed. Or somebody who doesn't have the means to interact in an appropriate manner to de-escalate. Some of the mental health calls that we deal with, we actually have better success with de-escalating than the mental health professional because of the relationship and the respect of law enforcement. Loud noise calls, this one that comes up from time to time. We have private security companies that do contract work for Cornell, for the different fraternities, that they call us because they lose control of the party. And law enforcement comes and issues the tickets because basically the kids will tell the security guard, like,
They call you guys or they call Cornell or
they call us because if they're off campus, Cornell does not respond. Now, we may call Cornell because there's leverage as well with the students that are at school, there's academic leverage. But just because there's not an arrest or it's not classified as violence, it doesn't mean that it's not something that.
So how do we keep track of all of that? All those things that you just said,
Well,
all that stuff. How do we keep track of the situation where you walked in and you firmly believe that it could have gone completely sideways as
There's-
opposed to,
18,000 law enforcement agencies in this country are trying to figure that out, as well as many professional organizations, as many academic institutions that study this day in and day out.
we'd love to give you all
we
the
also
money in the
have-
world if we could figure out where it's going.
I think the problem with this is, it's probably the safest thing to assume that any call can go left. That would be the starting point.
Yep.
I think to your point, as far as where would an unarmed person come in, would be more on the administrative sense after the fact, in terms of a follow-up. That's probably the clearest thing that's been made evident in the discussion so far. But I would never, in my view, send an unarmed person to be the first responder in any call. Simply because the minute something goes wrong, not only who's gonna take liability, not only these people not prepared for it, but on top of it, it's already should be assumed that anything can go wrong. And so I just wanna,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
if we're trying to prioritize that, I think that's a discussion for a later point, but what's evident is most is that they can at least handle the administrative side of things that usually take up officers' times afterwards or investigators' times afterwards, depending on how that can go.
Yeah, I jumped to a conclusion before I intended to. I think what I was trying to suggest is that what I'd like to see in this data presentation, because this is super helpful to see the 818 Class A crimes, and I don't want to dismiss any part of that. But there's another 18,000 calls that are taking place, and it would be helpful to see a pie chart of what they are, so that we can further inform future decision making. And it may or may not be unarmed responders. I jumped the gun on suggesting
This is
that.
what
But there is
the
more
community-
information that's
Yeah,
needed.
this is why the community thinks that crime is through the roof, is these calls and the scanner groups. But when it comes, soup to nuts, the violent crime is not as high, and that's what everybody is like at each other's throats. Cause, and the chief, you guys say this too, is like, you're doing your jobs, it's fantastic, the violent crime is down. Also, there's a lot of manpower that goes into maintaining that, right?
Right.
So explaining that and balancing it to people is incredibly hard. So
Right.
the more information groups like us can have, the more we can look at stuff that comes in. Or when Richard stops in the sidewalk, he can say, this is, there was 19,000 calls this year, but. This is how many there were.
Well, it depends on what you deem to be violent. I mean, there's all this stuff that's taking place, all this
This
larceny.
is their qualification, not.
Well, even with that number, my other suggestion or my other ask was gonna be, is there any way to work with, I think it's ACT? Is Act Tompkins where they're dealing with like victims of assaults. Are you familiar with that agency? Tompkins County Act or Act, I might be saying the wrong agency.
No,
Maybe a TC action, that's not. the same
TC
thing.
action is like, nah,
No, it's not coming to me. But I know that there are other officers that do work with like victims and I understand that they might be limited in what information they may provide.
well, there's an MDT meeting where they work with
Okay,
victims of different crimes, domestic violence, children victims.
that might be able to kind of, I don't know how that ultimately connects it, but I feel like being able to put all these pieces together kind of gives a better insight as to how many actual.
Right, this is just scratching the surface
Right.
and like some of the information that we're able to pull out of what we have for calls, but then, you know, I mean, there's so many different other levels to this, to looking at the specific cases. At one point, the CJC had pulled data from the county, from the criminal justice system and like dispositions on cases.
Right.
And there's a lot of information out here that really comes down to is being able to drill down into it, but then also the professional use of that data and the statistically, you know, kind of responsible and significant use of that data. We also had some numbers that were put out at one of the council meetings that the media picked up on, that 32% of arrests were of Black males and there's only 6% census data, you know, Black in the community, which was horrendous use of data because census data and arrest don't go
Well,
together.
that was highlighted on the,
It was, yes, it was highlighted, but they the numbers,
Community Justice,
right,
website.
And I had
I just
specific
saw it this
conversations
morning.
with them, that data does not correlate.
How
Those,
does it not correlate?
so that doesn't represent where police are called to go for service. So for instance, like our arrests last year, I think there was like 12 or 1,400 arrests. It was actually 700 unique people. So like some people will get arrested more than once. And then also 75% of our calls are where we're called by the victim, where they report who the suspect is. 25% is like a proactive stop, and even a proactive stop is based on specific information we get within a community. So it might be us with plainclothes officer observing things happening and then giving information to stop a person and investigate. The census data is totally independent from arrest data.
Right.
And we're
it's-
not only arresting our citizens.
We
that are
have
in-
residents and non-residents as well, so it's not accurate and it discredits the data and how it's being used.
And
It's
that,
nuanced for sure, but
that,
it's
it's
still
dated
something.
with,
It's still
it's-
something though.
It's
Racial-
confirmation bias is what it is.
I don't know quite that much of it.
that's a whole different discussion and, you know, probably a lot more sensitive, a discussion, but. You know, data can lie as well as tell you the truth, and that's why a data analyst. I mean, I kind of guess if I looked at that information, I'm gonna call you up and say, what the hell does that mean? Because to me, it might not mean anything. I mean, I'm looking at this and I go, what can I draw out of this? How's my neighborhood doing? And sometimes it's hard to tell.
Many people don't know the things that happen day to day, and that's not because I think it's dangerous, it's just most people don't know what happens around them. Now, people that are involved in crime, typically like they know. You know, we get questions from time to time. We had reported an arrest and a hammer assault. And it was like, oh, somebody was in a hammer. Do we want to put that in media? Well, yeah, because the community knows that happened and they should know that we made an arrest. We typically only, and this is a national average, but typically we interact with about 6% of the population. And that might be as a victim or as a suspect. You know, 94% of the population doesn't have interaction with police. We talked about this in procedural justice. They just don't. Like, maybe they'll get stopped on a traffic stop, but most people do not have police contact. Now the people that do have it for any number of reasons, and part of like the violence interrupter, the care team, is identifying other services or other ways to interact with people to reduce further police contact. The LEAD program, another program that reduces violent interactions because we redirect people towards those services that are helpful. And then again, like we said earlier, some people don't respond to that and they still have police contact, but many do.
Can we go on to some of the old cases? I'm sorry to be,
No, it's fine.
I'd really like to do this.
Diane, thank you very much. This is helpful.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Before, I'm sorry.
We
So,
do have to go on, we're gonna run out of time, we have two open investigations, we have to answer these questions.
no, I just wanted, I just wanted to be, if you can address it quickly, only because. This kind of goes, this is more towards the question that was asked publicly. I know that you might address it more private, like more directly with them, but I do think it's a question that publicly folks might want a brief answer to. To the question that was brought up, I'm sorry, I don't know y'all names, I apologize. But the question that was brought up about EBT being, you know, it's government shutdown, EBT on hold, there's a concern about increase in theft in terms of stores. Or is there some sort of anticipated plan to be able to, and you could just quickly answer it, but just so that people know with regards to this.
So I'll say like many of the businesses, especially the large box stores, have steadily increased their investment in different security options. I mean, everything from, you know, the magnet sensors they put in products to cameras. Many of those stores have facial recognition, not that they're running names into their database, but they can tell you if this person commits a theft, they can look back and see when they were in the store last and if they did other thefts. So there's different things like that, but at this point, there's nothing in place over concern over a rash increase of threats beyond standard practices.
Thank you. So I just hope that helps. I don't know if you guys get more follow-up afterwards, but I hope that kind of helped answer the question, you know.
Chris, you had a brief, something about,
I just want to make sure that Richard and Rick, you both want, I know your term ended at the end of 24 and you applied, but you weren't officially reappointed. You do want to continue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
good. So the mayor do that. And Rick, your term does end at the end of 25 and you would like to continue.
yes.
Okay, and then there's,
To address it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no,
Thank you.
the reason why it's a funny question is because I wanted to address this afterwards, but no better time than now. I recently got admitted to graduate school, and so I'm going to be transitioning out, and so that's why it's kind of hard to answer your question, but just like, but yeah, this is likely to be, I'll still support in other capacities and help here and there, but this is likely to be my last meeting. And for me, like I said, I'll still volunteer and support in other ways possible, but it's been a pleasure to work with everyone. This is, I wanted to do this in a more cleaner fashion, but
Let's go.
Columbia University.
Nice.
Congrats.
In what's your,
International affairs.
nice.
So it's just gonna be a different lifestyle, being a student all over again. You know, begging professors for extended time and whatever else comes with that, but it's been a pleasure serving on the board. I've got to serve here since I was in my early 20s. I'm now not in my early 20s. And so, between Shirley and Rick, who, really brought me on the board early, I came on at a time when it was a lot of different commotions coming in, but it was also a little different being on a police board at that point. Over time, it's gotten more attention. And I'm fortunate to have new members on here, that have been able to join. Meryl, shout out to you for, you've been a very instrumental piece in being able to provide not just technical structure, but this sense of real dedication to how we're doing things, right? Staying focused. Chief, I've appreciated working, we've had multiple chiefs, that have worked in different kind of ways. But you have a great balance of being able to, you know, stay staunch as to the points that you're trying to make, but have this honest sense of like how you're trying to address things, a willing ear to hear things out. And I appreciate the new deputy. I got to obviously see you at Cornell, but I'm excited to see you as part of the city force and just the confidence that you coming in, I feel even more confident, not only because of your experience, because I also know the kind of dignity and respect that you have in terms of how you do things. And so You two kind of remind me of a nice buddy cop film at some point. But I'm excited to see what's gonna happen in the
I'm
future.
sure somebody's making a
And
video right now.
Ithaca College, shout out to them, they got a nice little, I'm sure someone at Park is making some film at some point. But I really appreciate this, I appreciate the work that you're doing as far as analysis, because over time, we've talked about it for so long. This is needed more than ever, and again, Rick, and shout out to Shirley, you guys welcomed me with open arms, I came in here given hell. I learned to understand the value of, do you want to be understood or do you want to be right? And this board has taught me that in a serious way. And so, and Rick has just been really more a mentor along the way. Shirley has been a mentor who has never been afraid to give it to me straight. And I just appreciate the ability to serve on this board under multiple mayors, and thank you for doing this. And even as you, Dave, just on joining in, and you've been serious, you've been dedicated, just keep going, please, because we've had different folks that have helped or not helped. And you've been someone that I can tell just is really trying to get as much work as you can done. So thank you all. I know we got to go over the reports, but it's been a pleasure to serve on the board. Quite a transition.
Richard will be missed. Great.
Not yet.
Not just anymore, not with his friend, but I'll see.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow or other.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a motion to go to executive session,
I'll second that.
and I guess we have to vote on that, is that true?
Yeah,
Mhm.
legally, yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna. You two guys, this is time to discuss personnel issues.
Mhm.